Are you looking to expand your mind? Do you like to challenge and be challenged? Looking to improve yourself and share your experiences professionally and personally? You're in the right place. Welcome to Scoutcast, Roasting Marshmallows, with your host, Rolf Surd.
And we are live. Welcome to another episode of Scoutcast. My name is Rolf Surd and I'll be your host. So today we're talking about unicorns. A unicorn is a term in the business world to indicate a privately held startup is valued over $1 billion. So we're talking about startups. I got three guests here with me today that actually have some experience in starting up startups. Some of these startups has failed, some of them has succeeded, and we're going to be talking about that, see why have they failed and why did they succeed. So these guests are Henrique Santana de Miranda, Panche Gastiowski, I hope I pronounced your name right, guys, and Manuel Cayre. So let me just give a little introduction of Manuel, since Henrique and Panche are some regular guests here on the show, and Manuel is, for the first time here. So, today we have Manuel Cayre on the show. Currently, Manuel is working at ParkNow, better known here in the Netherlands as Parkmobile, an app that helps people pay for parking. And so Manuel is the head of Off-Street for the group in Europe, and it is his mission to bring also garage parking to the user, so that users will be able to not only pay for their on-street parking, but also pay for parking by simply just entering and exiting a garage in a seamless way, which to me sounds like a nice adventure ahead. So in the past, Manuel co-founded MobyPark, a peer-to-peer parking platform. That's a lot of P's right there. But he also initiated TuRodeo, an app to help keep a better information system for herds in South America. He went through different stages on finding user needs, building products, building teams, and he failed, but he also succeeded in creating new solutions. Welcome, Manuel.
Hi.
Hi, Manuel. So, I guess, Henrique, could you maybe first explain a bit about your startup and why it didn't work out the way you wanted it to?
Yeah, so, well, as you guys, if you listen to the previous podcast, you heard about me. So my name is Henrique. I'm actually from Brazil, living in Holland for the past 10 years. My original startup started when in my first year in Holland. My co-founder was actually living in Malaysia, and we are both planning a backpack trip around the Southeast Asia for 6 months. And we had this very annoying planning on the distance, like using Excel, Google Maps, booking. It was really just very hard to come up with something. And then we both being developers, we decided, okay, I think we should build this product and make it a startup. But of course, we didn't do it. We traveled. And then a few years back, we noticed that, there is not really any app. And then that's how we decided to create Goosit. That was a backpacker planning app. So
And did the name mean anything, Goosit? Because it kind of sounds weird to me. But
the name came from goose, because a goose is basically a bird that fly quite long distances and cross countries and everything.
Yeah, for the winter, right?
Yeah. And then we decided to make it like a Google it, like Goosit. So it's a combination of a goose with it in IT. Some people would call goose IT, but that was the idea. So it's a backpacker trip planning app. That's how Goosit got created.
Cool. All right. Thanks. Well, I guess we can get into some more details later on. So, Manuel, hi, welcome. Could you maybe explain a bit about MobyPark?
Yeah,
right?
JustPark was a company I co-founded.
Okay.
With my one of a good partner actually, and it started because every day going to work, we're going to the co-working space. There was no place to park on the streets. Suddenly, one of the colleagues said, "Why don't you?" In the co-working space, why don't you actually use my parking space? Because I go every day out of this area. Mm-hmm. So I take my car in the morning, I come at 6, 7 in the afternoon, and you are actually in this area for that amount of time. So when we go into this garage, it's downstairs, the car park was empty. It was a residential building. Mm-hmm. Everyone actually left the city to work somewhere else. And so while on the streets, it was full of traffic and very busy, difficult to park. Mm-hmm. Downstairs, it was an empty garage.
Yeah.
So this is how the idea started, taking shape. We started as a peer-to-peer platform for, reserving so when you're out, but then it didn't really work because the problem was that, maybe that day you didn't go to work. and your car, stay there. And the guy
Yeah.
who actually rented it, you couldn't get in. So the match was not really there. So what we did, we quickly iterate, and we went looking for, real estate or hotels to really find extra capacity within the city that are actually private garages. And then basically what we did, we opened them up. So we actually find these garages that were close to the public in hot areas in the city, and then we make sure we could open them up and share it with MobyPark. MobyPark was actually a website where you could rent out these kind of parking spaces. So kind of similar to the Airbnb for parking.
So you would rent them by the hour, or would you rent them like on a weekly basis, or how did it work?
You could rent it from, it depends on the owner. So some owners wanted, you could rent from 1 hour to X amount of time, and some of the owners only by month. So it depends on, it was kind of open in that way. And our focus was on tourism, basically, because we were in big cities in Europe, such as Paris, Amsterdam, even London. So a lot of tourists, and then you could private parking spaces at a nice discount, normally 50% off of what you could also do in the area. And that was what we did, basically.
Okay.
For quite a long time. And then after that, another team took over the work we've done, and took it to the next level. And MobyPark today is actually in the market. They're doing well, and they are really exploiting this niche, which is traveling. I mean, unfortunately, 2020 with the COVID, I can imagine is hard for any company which actually is in the mobility space. But yeah, they're hanging there.
Cool. And how did you right? Because starting an application like that is hard work. How did you define? Oh wait, we're losing some connection here. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes.
Oh, okay, cool. Sorry. Yeah. So how did you decide? Because most startups, they define an MVP and bring that to market and then validate the model that they're having, right? Did you also take that kind of approach?
Yeah, definitely. I think we built the platform 5 times.
Really?
Do it so.
And what?
The first one was, as I said before, we tried peer-to-peer quickly with a website like a Craigslist. It was kind of these kind of websites where you could just actually connect to the owner of the garage offline.
Yeah.
And then we saw a lot of traffic and a lot of contacts being made. And then we try to iterate from there, going into a more like a booking site. So that's where we actually did it in the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in the first few iterations, they were good enough to continue, or did you at one point say like, man, just never mind, I cannot be bothered with this anymore, it's not working? Or did you never really had that point?
No, I mean, we saw traction. Beautifully enough, with the first website, we had traction. Of course, the traction at some point it was organic. At some point, we also started spending some money on in Google, to bring some ads. And then the traction, you have traction when you spend money on Google.
That's a good thing, I guess.
That's for sure. That is good. Yeah, you have to be very careful of cost of acquisitions and all these parametrics. But we never had that. I mean, what we needed to build the platform. When you started up, we are looking also for good teams to develop the platform, and you don't have enough funds. So in this quest of trying to build something nice and at the same time trying to make it work, we failed a few times. And then we had to rebuild it because we built something maybe not robust enough with not the right people.
Okay.
We were both business guys. This is important to mention, right? So none of us were actually a CTO or a developer.
So let's say that the startup and your idea, and at some point you guys realized, oh, we're making this. How did you know that you actually, or when did you know that actually made it? What was that turning point? Was there a turning point?
What is made it? What
know.
is made it? I think it was. Yeah, I think the fact that the platform with a team that make it function and it could sustain itself. I think that's nice. For me, that's already a success in this very tough online environment. But definitely the fact that we could find funding funds actually in the market, that helped out a lot, because in the beginning it's very tough, and if you don't have the passion and you are willing to take some sacrifices, it's very difficult to do it.
Yeah.
What was
You have to really knock a lot of doors, and if you're not willing to do the hard job, especially early in the beginning, it's very hard.
what was one of the sacrifices that you had to make? Is it like personal life or some other thing?
Wow, in the beginning, I mean, there's no salary, there's long hours, you need to really go on the streets and knock doors, try to talk to the partners yourself.
Yeah.
You have to do this job, you have many caps in your head. You need to do the accounting yourself. You have to discuss with the developers. You have to discuss, call the users to really understand, are you happy with my service? How can I improve it? What was your experience? As I said before, go talk to the owners of the garages yourself to convince them to give the key of your garage. This is hard work, and sometimes it's just two people
And I
doing
think
it.
that's the part that a lot of people don't see it, right? Like everybody think, oh, startup is sexy, and I want to build my own business, and I'm going to be my own boss, and I'm going to create this app, and it's going to be super awesome. And I guess that was the mindset, at least I came from. And then you realize that, whoa, there is way more hard work than I actually expected. And I think once you build a startup, at least for me, was, my background is definitely different from Manuel, right? I'm a developer. And I think I had to become quite humble that actually marketing is a thing, community management is a thing, design is a thing, business. Apparently, you need to sell it, you need to talk to people. And it was quite an eye-open that it doesn't come as easy as I thought it would.
And what would you think it was your biggest pitfall then? Like where did it go wrong for you? Was it the marketing thing or was it totally different?
I think it was all of them together, right? I think it started by that we are basically two IT co-founders, and then later on we had the UX guy who actually joined, but we never had the business side, like really trying to sell, like knocking on doors. Of course, we did had the side of product development, of talking to our users and understand what they need. But let's say the business side, it was our biggest pitfall. I wouldn't start a new startup without having a business co-founder.
Right. But did you have a business model to begin with?
We had what we thought was a business model, but not a sustainable business model.
Right.
So
what was that then? Like kickback fees or something
we had what we call, for example, like affiliation programs, right? Let's say you are a backpacker and then you want to travel, you're going to book a hotel. So we join like Booking.com affiliation program or Hostel World's affiliation program. The problem with this kind of business model, it's kind of very broken for us in the sense of I'm competing with the same keywords. For example, Manuel said we got some money, we put advertisement on Google. If I want to do that, when we did that with Goosit, I'm basically fighting the same keywords as Booking.com is fighting, right? So, in the end, if somebody does a booking on my platform, they are basically paying Booking, and Booking is paying me. So basically, I'm sharing this money with them, so they are always going to win in the point of the marketing point of view on the keywords, right? So let's say the keywords is not unique. So if they buy a flight ticket for my platform, in the end, I'm paying Skyscanner because it's an affiliation program, and actually Skyscanner is paying me, and we are sharing the pie, but they are much bigger than us. So it's a very complicated. So we decided to go.
But isn't the point of these affiliation programs that they do the advertising for you?
No, it's more that they can search for flights and hotels inside of your own website.
Okay.
So if you basically forward them, then it's an affiliation, so you get like some percentage commission.
Okay.
And then we had other ideas, right? Like, okay, we can sell the plans offline. On the time, the internet was not everywhere, so you could download it offline. But in the end, you can still find Wi-Fi everywhere. And maybe printing an ebook. So like we had several ideas that in the end it never really became, because also the market we had, it was backpackers. It's cheap, low budget, right? So people don't really want to spend money. So it became really hard to make the thing sustainable. And that was, I think, the main problem. I think a business person would have helped us tremendously to figure out those issues much earlier.
Yeah. And Manuel, what was your business model at the start? Was it also some sort of fee that you would get from parking fees, or how did that work?
Yeah, so I mean, once the website was up and running and you could pay through the website, we get a share of the ticket.
Okay, and that
it was quite simple. It's very similar to the Airbnb model.
yeah, and that is still how it works today, I guess.
I think so. I'm not there since 2 years.
Okay.
Actually 2 years ago, but I guess it has the same model. There are also other ways to make money. I mean, we always try to maybe upsell bikes, maybe have a transaction fee to pay for the costs. So this is the kind of things you have to think from the user perspective. When you go to a city, imagine you come from Germany, from Berlin, and you want to spend 2 days in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
You park your car, and then maybe you want to have a bike. So maybe the right moment is to upsell a bike from the hotel itself, where actually you park your car, so you make extra deals to the hotel. So you keep on upselling stuff. So I think that model is actually nice, but I'm totally with Henrique. You need to find the right business model. And for our case, it was much easier because it was a known model from booking from Airbnb.
Yeah.
However, I think having the strategy is also a key point early on, right? If you don't have a good next 5 years with this, maybe you will iterate in the middle, and then maybe the business model that Henrique was mentioning was not the right one. Maybe he could have waited until he has more data, make it for free in the beginning. I mean, this is very key, especially in this online.
And I guess people are also used to
system.
actually paying for the parking, right? I mean, yeah, if you go somewhere in the city into a parking garage, you're going to have to be paying. So it's only natural that, if you're going to park your car for your vacation somewhere, then it's probably going to cost money. So I guess the acceptance rate of that is also a bit higher than what any startup was all about.
Although organically early on, what we did was to create a lot of content, so we could rank a bit better in Google by itself, with the right keywords, creating seriously a lot of content on blogs, and being on the Trivago sites. I mean, in all this kind of content traveling pages, and this kind of growth hacking help us to kick it off from the beginning, right, without any money. And then we start paying.
I have another question. I mean, like, you dove into the business side of things. I'm curious a bit more about the drive and the passion and the motivation behind it. I mean, it's a bit of a cliche, the saying that a person that has a why can withstand almost anyhow. And we talked like all this being very difficult, like doing a lot of sacrifices, and I know both of you have done it at least once. You also worked together on a startup, right? So what were your whys at the times? What was the thing that kept you pushing, even when all the odds were being stacked against you?
I think for me, my why, it's like, I think my parents, they were entrepreneurs themselves. They had their own companies and everything. So I kind of got raised on that environment, I think. I had a business with my father before Goosit, but I never look at it from a startup point of view. I was too young. I started doing that. I was like 16, 17. But I was also developing software on that thing. And I always have the feeling that I want to have this product that is bigger than me, right? That is like people love it, and that has solving a real need, and that is like it's sexy. It's just like, but I think in the end it's bigger than me. Like if I die, it would continue. It's just like serving a purpose to someone, and I never really started with the why. Like I hear sometimes people want to be their own bosses or having their own company. I think it's more like I wouldn't even mind if, let's say, it would just be me. But as long as it's helping a lot of people and it is impacting a lot of lives for the better, I think that's my why. And but in the end, I would definitely love to have a team with me that actually can tackle these problems. So I think in the end, I'm lying when I said like just me. But no, I would like to have a team around that can tackle this. That's my whys. Because when the shit hits the fan, if your partner is not there, it's very easy to quit.
Yeah. So, but then for you was not really the idea that you want to revolutionize or make backpacking easier? That was just the domain that you found in which you wanted to fulfill your intrinsic motivation of making
Exactly.
something bigger than you.
Yeah, it was not really the passion of backpacking. It was my first backpack trip, right? So that was
Yeah.
definitely the case, yeah.
And for you, Manuel?
This is a very hard question. To be honest, I think I like to create things. You know, it could be to do things with my hands. In this case, put a team together to try to solve a problem in the market. I mean, to be honest, for me, it was a lot of fun, and I need to have a lot of fun. But it could be anything else, to be honest. And by having fun and being, creative and trying to do something that maybe helps someone, maybe not, because I also once I tried to make a solar bag, 10 years ago. So I put a flexible solar panel in a backpack, and I didn't solve any issue because I couldn't sell any. But it was also creating, right? So yeah, I don't know. I don't have a clear answer to that, to be honest. I think it's within you why you keep on pushing.
Okay.
And I think it has to be a lot of how resilient you are in the hard moments, And maybe you need to be the kind of person that you want to hit yourself with the wall, and it's more or less okay.
I don't know, man. I don't know if I would like to hit myself on the wall.
Yeah.
Well, eventually, if you break the wall
what I mean,
after
right? Like,
enough hits, then maybe it's all worthwhile. But if you don't manage to break it, then it's like, okay, why did it do that?
And it depends on the brain damage that you
Exactly.
get from it, I suppose.
It's always difficult to measure after that,
And then for Henrique, I know this was the only project at the time that you were doing, right?
Yeah.
With Goosit in the beginning. Was it also the same for you, Manuel?
It was my first project, you mean? Or?
See, the question I wanna raise here is, do you need to go all in to be able to make something like this succeed? So, like, to use the analogy of the Mars when they invaded Spain, like they burned out their ships, they didn't have any other option but to conquer Spain. Is this the same mentality you need to do this, or do you think, oh, maybe I'm having a full-time job, and then okay, I'll invest part of that into something else in parallel that I can kind of shift?
I think in the beginning you could try. You could try and maybe have maybe early success, but at some point you need to make the decision. You need to give yourself to it completely early on. I don't believe there's other way unless you are only an investor or only just helping a team. But if you are the one creating it and executing on it, then I believe there's no other way.
Go hard or go home, huh? Yeah.
100%.
I think it's two-sided. I think it's also I think, for example, if I started Goosit by having like I say, a job, full-time job, and then I reduced my working hours. So instead of working 5 days a week, I started working 4 days a week, and then it gave a big acceleration to what we're doing, and I think it should basically validate some ideas and get something out of the box. I think you should just do that when you have work, right? Unless you have family to keep you up and you have a lot of money, then I would say you definitely should do that when you have work. Because if you don't have money to pay things, you cannot do anything. But at some point, I agree, you need to go all in, and otherwise it never gonna give enough love to grow. And I think you definitely need to do that. And I think that was, for us, the breaking point was we applied for an acceleration program, we got selected, and then we said, wow, now is the time, time to put it all in. And me and my co-founder did. And the next 3 years we worked quite a lot on it. And it was the sign we needed. Sometimes we need a sign, right?
Yeah. Or enough support, like that somebody else believes in the idea that you are, and you're like, okay, I'm not completely alone in this.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And so what made you decide in the end to sell MobyPark? Why did you
Yeah, it was more like a natural movement for us, for the founding team to at some point within the company we were many. There was a board, there were many people, right? You have investors, so on and so forth. So it was a natural movement for for the next team to continue and to push,
Did
to keep on
you
pushing more than.
did you actually look for buyers, or did you get contacted by one that knew that you guys were maybe open for a suggestion?
No, so basically the process was throughout the investors that we had throughout the whole period. One of them actually took a majority
Okay.
position, so it was a natural
okay.
step. That's why.
Yeah.
It was a-
So let's see.
maybe going back to the previous point from Henrique, at some point he said, when do you want to go back to actually work on this full percent because you validate some stuff? But what if you don't validate anything? Maybe you need to keep on pushing, you need to keep on pivoting. And I think in this try and error is at some point, if you are more or less in the right trend, I think, and you are willing to keep on pushing, maybe you will find a model that will work, you know? But for sure is the fact that you will never know. And that is the complexity with this uncertainty and today's pressure to between brackets being successful is very hard to
and I mean, we have an example, right? Because Manuel and I, we tried together to build a new startup. As I said, I would never start something without having a business partner.
Yeah.
So he came from the business side, and I think we tried, 2 years now.
Are you still trying?
Yes, 2 years already. Even
Well,
more.
that's a good question.
Yeah, we're to be honest, this is where we didn't make the leap of faith, for example, and also I think we make some strategically wrong decisions where our market focus is not where we actually spend our kind of basic, but we were maybe optimistic in that regards. But basically, TuRodeo is what we try to do is help the farmers who have herds, who have cows, to manage the cow in a better way throughout some sensors.
Okay.
And we went through. So actually, we built a which works, right? It's nice. I like it. Now Henrique, he built it, so I have to
of
say
course.
that now. I really like it.
But you're missing some features, I bet.
Of course.
And then we have actually some users. We have actually a lot of a nice amount of data within the database, I would say.
Yeah.
And but the thing is now also we are, as I said before, in a market where we are not present. We had someone locally also, but I think we needed more muscle to the project at some point. And also now, we try to do it in Argentina, which today is a very heavy crisis.
Yeah.
So no one is really investing in this kind of technology at this stage. So also we were a bit lucky in that regard.
What are you measuring for these cows? Is it like their state of health, like temperature and all that kind of stuff, or more like location and how much milk they're giving, or how should I see this?
I give it to
Henrique, enlighten me.
Well, so that's fun, right? Because it started by, I guess, like Manuel's father has a farm, so with 200 cows. I don't know if you guys know anybody that has like 200 cows. But
I know a few. Hey man, I'm from the north, huh?
Oh yeah, that's true. You're from like there's more cows than people right there.
Yeah.
And I think like through this investigation was just like, okay, they measure like the teeth of the cow, they measure the weight, and they measure like a bunch of things. And at some point in the platform, we're like, wow, apparently pregnancy is something that is really important, because if a cow is no longer, producing babies, then there are no use for them.
Yeah.
And then also we realized that there is another total different market about getting the pedigree of the cow, like checking the mother, the grandmother, where the cow came from. So basically those are like the measurements we are getting. But of course the challenge technically is like, these people are not IT savvy. They are not per se, they have like huge hectares of land. So these cows are spread all over. And then sometimes it's hard to know who the baby is, which mother is, who the father is. And measuring the weight of a cow is not just like you go to your bathroom when you go on top, right? And then you get a measure. There is different companies working on it, different type of scales. And it's a thing, those are the type of measurements we are trying to get and trying to make it simpler to eventually be able to get more insightful data about how and what they should do with their cattle.
Okay, well, interesting. And that is...
They actually what they do, they have a paper and a pen, and they measure everything by pepper
Okay.
pen. So what we would try to do is to replace this format into an app through a few sensors in the
Yeah.
cow. But sometimes pepper and a pen are actually quite useful.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
for sure.
Especially in the field, right? So it
Yes.
could be easier to write something on a paper with a pen than on a fiddle with your
Yeah.
touch screen.
You make a lot of mistakes with the weather. When you have actually rain and wind, and you make mistakes by counting numbers, etc.
And-
And that's also what we try to fix within
And
our
then
system.
why are you focusing on Argentina? Because I'm sure here in the Netherlands we have plenty of cows as well. Is there no market here for this type of thing?
The thing is, in Holland, you have to look at Argentina as like a huge, amount of
Mhm.
land, and you're in the middle of nowhere, and then you're talking about maybe hundreds of hectares with thousands of cows. And in Holland, you have maybe farms with 5-10 hectares and maybe 100 cows, and they are all, sleeping under a roof, and they have Wi-Fi in the farm. So then there is actually more technology here.
Okay.
You can put a sensor, and then actually with GPS, and then you actually the systems you have here, they're way more advanced than we try to do there. But this is not something you could scale up to those massive farms, because it's very expensive, because you have no connectivity. So we try to do something in the middle
Okay.
to serve those guys there under the conditions of that market.
Yeah.
That is why here, you have actually nice
And
products.
also,
So we
and also
wouldn't
the
compete.
market was different, right? Here the cows are very much focused on milk, where for the ones in Argentina and also Brazil, they are very much focused on meat. So it was more like the industry was definitely a bit different than the focus.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, they didn't have a problem here to solve. We had the problem in there. That's why we started there.
Well, there's also a mistake because, as Manuel said, we are not there, right? And then also this feedback loop of learning with the
Yeah,
customer,
exactly. Right.
understanding
It's
the problem.
other side of the world.
Yeah.
So
And they speak Spanish, so that's also very weird.
So you guys, so I already asked your reasons for starting your original startups, right? And then what about TuRodeo? I guess for Manuel, I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, it was kind of maybe simplifying the life of your father. Maybe you saw like opportunity there. And for Henrique, you mentioned that your original motivation was to make something bigger than you. Was this the same thing applicable with this startup?
I think for me it started in a way because I went to Manuel's wedding in Argentina a long time ago, and we had an interesting case. I still remember this story. Like, I don't know if he remembers, but like we are doing this like a nice road trip, going to Bariloche, like 2 cars, and eventually one of the cars ran out of battery. Like the driver forgot the lights on, so the battery of the car died. So we are in this gas station. And then Manuel is searching for these 2 cables to connect 2 cars in a battery, like to do this, I don't know how you
jumper
call that in
cables.
English. Yeah, exactly. And then he's just like asking everyone, like the fancy cars, like, oh yeah, do you have these jumping cables, And all of them saying no. And I remember seeing this very crap car, like totally packed, full of things, like the car was falling apart. And then I look at Manuel and I said, man, you should ask that guy, because if there is somebody who knows about something that is broken, he must have it. And then he goes there and asks, and the guy like, oh yeah, I do it. And he actually gave it to us, and we could get out. And he was like, oh my goodness, I want to work with you, man. Yes, I like your mind. I don't know, it got stuck into me, right? So, and of course, a bit of background, like we are friends. And I also like the way how he thinks about business. And I think it was just a match. So I was like, yeah, it's definitely going to be cool. So I think this one, the idea, it didn't per se attract me, but I think the team was the thing that attracted me. And the combination from the mistakes I did, and it definitely could complement my my set of skills. So that was my motivation on this.
all right. And you mentioned the team. Is that the most important thing, you think, or is it more like the idea of the startup, like the problem that you're trying to solve, or?
I think the team is the most important.
Yeah, by a long shot.
By far. Yeah. Because the idea can change. You could start selling cookies, and then you actually sell I don't know, sand. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You could make it happen with a good team.
And how would you cultivate like a good team then? Is it like just attract the right people, or is it create the correct culture, or how do you go about doing that? Because that's obviously the hardest part then, I would say.
What question?
I guess if we can answer that, then we would be rich, I suppose.
Well, we are rich, and that's what we do, right, for daily. But I
We
don't know.
are a
Maybe
team,
Pancha has
right?
their ideas about how to fix that.
Well, fix.
I don't know. I
Is
mean,
it broken?
for me personally, it has to be a click in the beginning. I'm not like this kind of HR. Feeling the skill. It has to be a click. It has to be a match where you could challenge yourself, with respect, and be able to handle that tough discussions. And mindset-wise, of course, you have to have a mindset of pushing. You have to have a mindset of resilience, as I said before. But if there is no click, at least for me, it doesn't work.
Yeah. So I haven't been part of a startup that have seen some light of day in one form or another. I mean, I worked a few years ago with a couple of guys here in the Netherlands on an idea to make more accessible selling of personalized spirit bottles. So you would get like a laser engravement on the bottles, and the market at the time there were machines who were costing hundreds of thousands of euros, and then the idea was, okay, let's scale that down. For whatever reason, I mean, that we worked on that for a few months, that work out. So from that perspective, I'm trying to think of the discussion now. We're talking about the team. I think it's you really need to have a good mixture of people with same motivation probably, or same direction, but then also with different backgrounds, and you also essentially want similar enough but also different personalities, and to get that in the beginning, you either have it or not, or don't have it. And we know so many ideas and startups that are created maybe in a more artificial way that wouldn't work out. And generally, I would say, or maybe it's a question to you: do you think that the best startups are started by people organically, or with people who know each other?
No, I think there are different ways. I mean, to be honest, the ones that I know the most are people that just kind of in a garage playing around. But you also have some guys, very strong guys, solo guys, pushing alone, and then at some point, hire someone, and then doing all these like all these processes around it. I think there are not too many like that, but you have very strong mindset guys who actually take all the hits himself or herself, and they hire people, fire people, and try to find this right amount of skills within the needs that the company has. And I'm with you, Panchi. I think you need the right amount of skill sets. You need, especially in the beginning. You need, as Henrique said before, you need a business guy. Then maybe you need a technical guy, depending on what you want to do. I do believe, though, that if you really want to do what you want to do and you're passionate enough, you will find these resources. You will find.
Well, that got me thinking, because you mentioned yourself, Manuel, at some point earlier. It's like in the beginning you basically everything. You're a one-man band, one-man show, so it's good. And you cannot do all of those activities as equally good. I mean, you will have certain skills or experiences in certain areas. So if you can have somebody that's complementary to that, then that's, I guess, match made in heaven.
That's a perfect combination. Yeah, perfect combination. Yeah,
And like,
I'm a kind of guy who likes to work with someone. To rely on someone to do it to do it together. Yeah, that gives me energy. That's what I want to do it.
Yeah, I agree as well. It's like it's always fun to have even heated discussions and then disagreements, and then eventually like, okay, let's go down this path if we agree or not. But it's definitely for me gives a lot of energy to learning from somebody else as well, different skills, and adjusting. But like one thing that I'm curious as well, because like, for example, why you, Rolf, and Panche didn't create your own startup, right? Why is that so? Why is not everyone creating their own companies?
Well, that's a good question, because as most people, I guess, that are, maybe many people dream of having a startup, but at least like the guys that I know that are into programming and engineering, they all want to build something for themselves and then have people use it and solve a problem and, hopefully start a company off of that. So that is definitely something that I have also, have some ambitions for. But I've never really found a problem that I say like, okay, I'm going to fix this problem and I am going to start a company that's going to specifically solve this. Like, sometimes I heard some guy saying like, I made a program that does a specific task, and then I'm like, damn, why did I think of that? So I think I just haven't come across the right idea to solve yet. So I don't know how it is for Panche, but that's at least my excuse.
So my my life for a long time, my motivation. So when I was still living in Macedonia back at the time, during my student years, in the summers I did a couple of internships, and during those internships I was like, I saw like the work ethics and the way people being treated at the companies that I went to work for, and kind of thought, oh man, this could be better. Like, it really can be done differently. And my initial drive and motivation to maybe join Isaac, through which I ended up coming to the Netherlands, was basically that. It was like, okay, I want to go on this journey outside of this place where I come from, and then learn new things and maybe come back and bring those experiences. And whether that was a startup or not, I didn't even think that far. So then when I came to the Netherlands, I worked with this company for a couple of years as an intern and then as a developer, a Java developer. And then after 2 years, I went back to Macedonia and started a branch of this company with the whole idea is basically just to bring back those experiences, maybe a different mentality, maybe a new way of working, back into this area where I come from. And I think that was more my goal. It was my point was, I want to make people's lives better, and maybe I cannot change society as a whole or improve things on the grand scale, but at least those 8 hours of, that's what you have kind of power and control of, and that was kind of my motivation. And I did that for a few years, and I moved back to the Netherlands, and then I wanted, like, the idea was, he said, I wanted to have this my own company, like, right? And I was working in parallel, and then I thought, okay, I joined up in this idea, okay, let's work on this startup. But I didn't see the light of day. I think we all got to the point where we found another startup in Netherlands who was working on sort of prototype from these machines, or could develop these machines for us, but the original investment was quite high that we were not really willing to put that much in, and then we sort of pulled back up. Hence my question was, can you start a startup while you're still working, then, or at which point do you completely commit to it? Because it comes from my personal direct experience. Okay.
Yeah, so that's the question, right? Like, what is it going to take for you two guys to fully commit to TuRodeo?
Yeah. Wow. I think we almost made the decision that we're going to kill it. We are just now, I think it's an interesting, for me, right? Like, when I had Goosit, the question was like, is it time to kill? Because you can also, there's quite some discussions around, like, is about persistence, right? And like, how long can you persist? But also you can persist dedicate your whole life to it and get nowhere. And I think with Goosit, I came to the realization that I lost the energy and took me too long to learn the skills that I needed in order to make Goosit a success.
Okay.
We later realized that we are not in the travel industry, but like more on the productivity industry, like making people more productive would have been a much better outcome. So in the end, my co-founders no longer had the energy and the money, because we are self-funded. We decided never go of like investors and VCs and this kind of things. And eventually I was like, okay, this is way too much energy. I no longer have it. If I knew what I know today, and I started this like 3 years ago, definitely I think we could have made a much more progress. I wouldn't say like we would have become successful, but definitely would be a different story. And I apply a lot of these learnings with Manuel and TuRodeo, but it also came to the point that we made new mistakes, right? And those new mistakes makes me feel like, okay, my energy is kind of gone here too. I don't think this is the I don't have the idea is not passionate enough for me to continue, I think. And I think we had this discussion a few times. And maybe he's going to be on this podcast. We're going to kill TuRodeo.
Well, you don't have to make the decision right here. I'm just asking, like, what has to change for you guys to really go all in on this? But there might not be an answer to that, I guess.
I don't know. I'm curious. What is it, Manuel?
No, I think that, to be honest, there is no absolutes on this. I mean, why to kill it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why not?
Wow.
It could also be an answer.
Why to kill it is to get space on your head, right? Like, you stop thinking about it. It's like cognitive load, right? There's always this thing in the background.
Yeah, I know. From that perspective, I'm with you. But we could also say, you put a standby for some time, right? And then maybe wait for the moment and the market, or maybe some dynamics, and maybe at some point you could, refloat it. I mean, ultimately, to be honest, if you're gonna measure everything because of success or not, I think I think is the wrong approach. I think the approach is you have to look at the journey, because ultimately, as you said before, you could push 20 years for something, and at the end, you need to put the plug. And then ultimately, what happened with those 20 years of your life? So if you think on always whether success or not in absolutes, that could be very painful. So I don't like to think like that. I'm more like in the journey type because at least I try to. Also, we don't have to try to make a company. I mean, it's really we need to contribute to. I think some people have other passions, not to create a company, or we don't have to all do that.
I definitely agree with what you're saying.
I have another question here, because both of you, since you've did your original startups, then since that time your lives have changed quite a bit. I guess you're both parents in the meantime. How has your attitude towards startups and initiating new startups changed as a result of this?
You mean after we became fathers, or?
Yeah, after we became parents, yeah. Does that in any way influence your attitude towards maybe risk taking, or going all in, or?
To initiate one doesn't per se, let's say, initiate, it's okay. Go full in, I think I didn't have the option yet to do that, but I'm pretty sure it's going to impact. I will consider 10 times before actually throwing the towel and say, okay, I'm fully committed to this startup to make it happen.
Yeah.
Manuel, you nodded a bit, but you didn't say anything.
No, to be honest, this is a very nice question, Panche. I have different thoughts right now going through my mind. The first one is, if I have to do it again, and if I believe in something, I will definitely do it. If there's a good opportunity there that I think is worth it. I do think that I want to spend more time with the children. I really need more time for that, because that gives me a lot of energy, and they grow, and they grow once, then you miss it. And I think the third point is, sometimes I have the feeling that I want to do something for them to look up, and to inspire them in a way, and to for them, when they have to make decisions, that you did something that, I don't know, maybe they can be a bit more bold in the decisions they make in the future, because ultimately nothing will happen, right? I mean,
and is that also maybe a reason why you don't want to necessarily kill a startup, because you want your children to maybe not look at that and say like, oh, daddy failed on that one? Might not be the most fun question for me to ask, but it's interesting at least to see, like, yeah.
No, I don't see it as a failure. To be honest, that's why I was saying it's not success or failure because you reach somewhere with a project, or because you say, okay, I'll stop here. I think we shouldn't measure this like that, because it's kind of sad, And I think to try out to push for something is really what maybe I want my kids to take away. Ultimately, we will never know what's the outcome, But if you try out.
No, but I like the way you said it's a journey, right? And you need for your children, you want to be that model that says, hey, it's okay to take those journeys in life.
Yeah. And I think this is a
Thank you.
beautiful conclusion to the whole startup journey. I don't know, if you guys have anything else to ask or to add to this podcast, but I think we are just about running out of time. I don't have the clock running here, but I think we're hard capped on 60 minutes, so I'm not sure if you guys want to.
Wow, I
pick up-
definitely have a lot of other questions, but we can always have a follow-up, right? It depends if
Definitely.
how it goes, because I'm pretty sure people has, let's say we definitely have experience about, well, we have different experience, at least Manuel and I joined different acceleration programs, and how does that impact, how does that make your startup or yourself grow? But we can definitely jump in back and talk deeper about the technicalities of how I think we can grow.
Sure, sounds good. Looking forward to that. Maybe I'll have my own startup by then as well. So then I can,
Well, in a way, your podcast, right? This
Oh, yeah.
podcast is a startup, and you wrote a blog post about this, and it's going to be published. But maybe
Yeah.
you can explain that, how you see
yeah.
it.
yeah, maybe. Cool. All right. So Pancha, do you have anything to add?
No, not for now. I think in interest of time, let's wrap it up. I like what he just mentioned. Get more insight how these accelerators work, but we can leave that for another
Yeah.
time.
Emmanuel, would you agree with that? Would that be a cool subject for you to return on one day?
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. On my side, I really appreciate the invitation. Had a good time, and hope to see you again. to
Yeah,
be honest.
me too, man. I had a blast. Thanks a lot for sharing your knowledge on startups, and I learned a lot today, at least. And hope to talk to you again soon. So for now, I'd like to thank the listener. If you guys have any opinions or any experience with startups yourself, then you can always drop us a message on podcast@forescouts.nl. We're also on Twitter @forescouts, and of course on the website forescouts.nl. Thanks a lot for listening, and check you guys next time.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Scoutcast, Roasting Marshmallows, with your host, Rolf Surd. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit forscouts.nl and on Twitter @forscouts. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time on Scoutcast, Roasting Marshmallows.